Alrighty, so today we're going to be having a look at simple interest a little bit more. In particular, we're going to be looking at three different cases. Solving for the interest rate, I, solving for the principal, the starting amount, P, or solving for N, the number of years or the time. Alrighty, so let's go and have a look at how it works. So for example, let's have a look at solving for I first. So imagine we have a $350 investment that grows to $450 over 10 years. Alrighty. So we know some of the information, but we don't know all of it. So we start by 350, it grows to this amount. So since it's grown to this amount, we know that this is A and this is P. So it's starting amount, finishing amount, and this is N. So what do we need? Well, in order to find I, we use I equals PIN. So we know what P is, we know what N is, but we don't know what capital I or little I is. So we can't actually use this formula because we've got two things we don't know. So instead, we're going to use a different formula to work out what the interest is. So since the account's equal to the principal plus the interest, we can substitute what we know in. 450 is equal to 350 plus I. Subtract 350 from both sides. Opposite of plus is subtract. And we get that 100 is equal to the interest. So we now know what the interest is. Now we can use that in this formula. So if the interest is $100, the principal is $350, the interest is, we don't know, and the time is 10 years, N is 10 years, then we've got this equation sitting here. So how do we solve for I? Well, the opposite of times is divide, so I'm going to divide both sides by 10. That leaves us with 10 on the left-hand side and 350 times I on the right-hand side. And once again, I'm going to divide both sides by 350. And I'm going to be left with a 35th, which is equal to 0.02857, which I'm going to round to 86. And you might be wondering why I've got so many decimal places. There's a very good reason for that, is that I should be a percentage, but it's currently being written as a decimal. So we've been dealing with percentages heaps. We know how to convert a percentage into anything else, but the thing we probably haven't practiced enough is how to convert back. And the answer is real simple. We just multiply by 100. So we get 0.0286 times 100% equals I. So we get 2.86% is equal to I. And that would be per annum. Alrighty, so that's our first example, looking at how to find little I given P, A, and N. If we had been given P, I, and N, capital I and N, well, it would be a lot easier. We could have just skipped that first step and gone straight to the second bit that we did. Alrighty, let's have a look at another one. Alrighty, so interest of $300 is made on a 6% per annum simple interest account after 40 months. So in this case, we've gotten I, we've got I, little I and big I, the percentage and the interest rate and the interest itself, and this would be N. So the thing we don't have is P, so we're solving for P. So I is equal to PIN. But the thing is, we know that capital I is $300. We know that little I is 6%, or better written 6 over 100. And N is the problem one, 40 months. But the interest rate is per annum. It's a per annum rate, so we need our N to also be per annum, so we need to divide it by 12 because there's 12 months in a year. So we get 40 over 12 years. Alrighty, now we're good to go. So capital I is 300 is equal to P, which we don't know, times I, which is 6 over 100, times 40 over 12. And we've got to do a little bit of algebra. So first thing is, let's divide by 40 over 12, both sides, to get rid of that from the left-hand side. So we're left with 300 divided by 40 over 12. Now this might end up being a very annoying number, or it might not be. I'm not sure. I'm just going to do all of this at the very end so that I can avoid rounding in the middle of a question. And once again, same thing here. I'm going to divide again by this fraction. Opposite of times is divide. So instead of times 6 over 100, divide 6 over 100. And now I'm going to be left with a pretty big monstrosity on the left-hand side. 300 divided by 40 over 12 divided by 6 over 100 is equal to p. But I have isolated p on the right-hand side. So now all I need to do is type that into my calculator and see what it gets. And we get as a final answer, 1,500 on the left-hand side is equal to p. So we must have started with $1,500 or $1,500. Alrighty, one more example to look at, which will be solving for n. Alrighty, so a loan of $7,000 grew to $8,500 at 3% per annum. Determine the time taken. Alrighty, so we've been given that p, the starting amount, was $7,000. And we knew that it grew to $8,500. Alrighty, so let's work out what I is equal to, first of all. Because in order to use the PIN formula, the I equals PIN formula, we need to know the interest, capital I. So A is equal to P plus I, and we know that 8,500 is equal to 7,000 plus I. Subtract 7,000 from both sides, and we are left with 1,500 is equal to capital I. So we figured out what I is. Now we can go into using the simple interest part of the formula. So we know what P is. P is 7,000. We know that I is 1,500. And we know that little I is 3 over 100, 3%. Alrighty, so now we can just use the formula because we don't know what little n is. So capital I is equal to capital PIN. 1,500 is equal to 7,000 times 3 over 100 times n. Opposite of times is divide, so let's divide both sides by 7,000. Yeah, let's just do divide 7,000 like that, that's fine. Alrighty, so we've got 1,500 divided by 7,000 on the left-hand side. Once again, I'm not working this out right now, because if it got me a really ugly number, then I'm going to have a less fun time dealing with it if I round it too soon. 3 over 100 times n, opposite of times 3 over 100, divide 3 over 100, do that to both sides. And now I'm left with 1,500 divided by 7,000 divided by 3 over 100 is equal to n. Well, let's just work out what that on the left equals. Alrighty, it's equal to 7.142, and I'm going to round that to 17.14. Now the question is that with time is annoying, right? Because we've got to think about units. So this is currently in years, because everything else we've been doing was in years. In particular, the interest rate was per annum, therefore per year. Years is our outcome. Now we need to think about, well, what does 0.14 years mean? So this is really 7 years and 0.14 years. And the question is, well, what's 0.14 years? So 0.14 times 12 is about 1.5 months. So this is in years. If I multiply it by 12, that's going to give me 1.68 months, which is approximately 2 months. Alrighty. So we could have just rounded that down to 7 years, but I think it's better to try and calculate the months as well. So we take the remainder decimal and we deal with that separately to the rest of the whole part. So we get 7 years and 2 months. And that's how long it should take. Alrighty, so that is a quick look at some of the ones where we have to do a bit of algebra in order to solve. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.